To begin the configuration of the optimization model, first we're going to have to click on the Components tab over on the left-hand side. From here, we're going to start with the general setup and the configuration accordion. For this tutorial, we'll be leaving all of these fields as their default values. So the currency will be left at Canadian dollars, volume will be left at meters cubed, and the density parameter will be left with the density parameter, which we will see in the parameters menu. In the parameters tab, we have 4 default entries: C4, C1 to C3, sulfur, and the density parameter that we saw in the general setup. These parameters are assigned a name, given an aggregate type, an attribute type, and a measure type. For this tutorial, we'll be leaving the parameters as their default values. As will the financial elements will also be left at their default value. Moving on to the network accordion, let's start with the products. The products table is used to define any products or indices that will be used for the optimization. For this tutorial, we'll be using the default product folders of condensate and crude oil, but we will be making some modifications to the entries that are within these folders. So in the condensate folder, let's select the MSB product, and we're going to change the name of that product to CRW. We'll leave the category as condensate, the type we will be leaving at both, and we will be modifying the min and max values of density and sulfur. So the minimum density we will set to 600, the minimum sulfur we'll set to 0, the max density we'll be setting to 799, and the max sulfur we'll set to 0.15. Moving on to the crude oil folder, let's first modify the PSO product. So first, we're going to rename PSO to WCS. Leave the configuration type as both. The minimum density will be 875. The minimum sulfur will be 0. The maximum density will be 975. And the max sulfur will be 5. The MSW, we'll leave the name as is. We'll assign the minimum density to 800, the minimum sulfur to 0, the max density to 850, and the max sulfur to 1. And lastly, the WTI. The configuration type we're going to change to index, and therefore the density and sulfur content will all be 0. So let's save our model before moving on to transport types. So here we have 2 default transport types, pipe and truck. They can be configured to have a capacity as well as min and max values. The Transport Types tab is used to define different transportation methods by which products can enter or leave the facility. So for this optimization model, we're going to leave the 2 default values, although we will change the capacity of the truck transport type to 1 meter cube. So let's save before moving on to the Sites tab. We have 3 default folders of sites in the tab. We have Supply Company, Blending Company, and Pipeline Company. To expand all of these drop-down menus, you can simply click this button up here in the toolbar. Now we can see that the Supply Company folder has 2 sites within it, Blending has 1, and Pipeline has 1. So we're going to change these default names from Supply Site 1 to Heavy Supplier, and Supply Site 2 to Condensate Supplier. Alright, now let's save before we move on to the last item of facility streams. The facility streams are used to define the different output methods available for the blending facility. In this tutorial, we're going to use the default facility stream. But let's still go through the configuration. You can select the site that the stream originates from, where the stream terminates, and its method of transportation.